Farm for Profit Podcast. Take a listen, have a blast. Farm for Profit Podcast. Learn about farming while having a laugh. Farm for Profit Podcast.
And listeners, welcome back to the Farm for Profit Podcast. This is Tanner.
This is David.
And Corey's here too.
And Ethan. You could say, hi, I'm Ethan.
I'm Ethan.
That's right.
Yes.
Normally we don't do that.
We
Normally.
don't, but I feel like he's going to be an extremely key member of this episode that we're recording right now.
Yeah.
He's even going to shove the mic a little closer to his mouth so we can hear him better.
Oh, yeah.
But we're down here at the National Farm Machinery Show, hanging out at the Brandt booth, and I'm excited because our listeners have been writing in a lot about, hey, I want to get started into farming, and how do you do this? Or, hey, times are tough, and my banker's got a question on this. Or what are your guys doing to make your break-even more manageable? I mean, we're farm for profit, and that's kind of been the basis of what we've done from the beginning, is trying to help farmers achieve higher levels of profitability. But beyond that, we do episodes that our listeners suggest to us. Those comes through email, farmforprofitllc@gmail.com, or through text message, 515-207-9640.
If you guys want to come up and sit, you can come in front of the cameras and sit in here. It's no problem.
Grab a
Just going to
seat.
let you know.
Absolutely. Once you're there, you can't leave, though.
Yeah.
Not till we're done and we sign autographs.
It's just a hashtag Farm for Profit.
So isn't this just one of those years where you just farm for fun?
You know, you started Farm for Fun, and you said that because not every time you can farm for profit. I'm pretty sure you
Right.
said it's
Sometimes
not
we're just
always
farming for
profit.
fun. But I feel like Ethan's having fun no matter what.
Ethan's always
Aren't
having
you?
fun.
Unless I'm throwing wrenches, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's you still make that look fun somehow.
I'm having fun.
At least on Snapchat.
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
I'm making profit.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
It's more fun when you're making a profit.
that's right.
Yes.
So, listeners, the whole basis of this conversation is I was cruising Facebook, and one of my favorite places to go on Facebook is the Grain Market Discussion Group. And, Corey, you are a member of the Grain Market Discussion Group.
Yes, I did. And I saw this very, very long post one day.
Dave, you're on Facebook.
I didn't even realize because it's a little, the font of who wrote it is small.
It's so small.
And I was reading through it, and I didn't read all of it because I can't read that well. I'm very slow. But it was very good. And then Tanner's like, hey, did you see Ethan's post? And then I went back and actually read the rest.
Where have you guys been?
We just got back from the Custom Harvesters event where operators from across the country couldn't stop talking about Steinbauer performance modules.
Yeah, they're seeing up to 25% more power, better fuel efficiency, all with smarter injector duration and not altering the rail pressure for safe and reliable performance.
If you're looking to maximize your machine's potential, go to steinbauer.us and tell them Farm for Profit sent you to get yours today.
So, Dave, you're on Facebook a lot.
I am.
Are you part of the Grain Market Discussion?
Nope, I've never been invited.
It's a dumpster fire usually.
Do you have to be invited to the
I don't
Grain
know.
Market
I didn't even know
GMD?
it was a page.
Don't know.
It's like Ag Talk now. I mean, it's like where all the haters migrated from the old Ag Talk or new Ag Talk. And it's just a bunch of trolls, farmers trolling each other pretty much.
But I still appreciate Ag Talk because when somebody's had the same problem as me 10 years ago and I look it up and it pops up,
Yes.
that's
Oh,
very
okay.
helpful.
I
Yeah.
get that.
You're referring to X, the
Yes.
old Twitter.
Well, no, Ag Talk, like literally the forum website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's-
We're going
it's
back.
old
He
school.
You're not even
He can
hashtag
type
Ag
in. He can type in this problem.
got it.
And somebody
Somebody
because of
10
the
years
age
ago.
of his equipment,
Yes.
someone 10 years ago had the problem.
Yes.
You can
he's
search
typing
it.
now.
Yes.
It is nice, especially like I think maybe your GPS problem
Was that on
might
Ag
have
Talk,
came.
not Reddit?
It came from Reddit, but it was like it took me back to Ag Talk.
I got you.
So
That's
how's it going, man?
Take a business card, have at it, send us a message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you remember, Ethan, the basis of the post that you made?
Vaguely. I was just kind of making it to see what other people were doing. I mean, I was going through my input costs, and I don't like them. And I was sharpening my pencil as much as I could without trying to sharpen my yield too. And just trying to overall have a better ROI next year. So
Yeah.
I was trying to see, hey, I'm not the only one doing this, so see. And I tried to throw some of the things that I'm doing and not, just pull from it, but actually put something out there.
I
as
couldn't
well.
believe how transparent you were.
Yeah.
That was a surprise to me, and welcomed. I mean, that was very cool. And when I copy and pasted your post with all the comments that you got, it was 48 pages of paper. So I went through and I weeded things out. I kind of summarized some of the key points that you talked about, and then I summarized some of what I felt were the key responses from the people, whether
was
they
some
were
good
being
ones.
a-holes or they were being supportive.
So I also, before we get deep into the weeds here, if you want more of Ethan's background, we have 2 shows with Ethan on our Farm for Profit podcast anywhere. So I'm going to say October 2nd, 2023 and May 11th, 2023. You got twice in 1 year.
Yeah.
But the second, October 2nd was Beginning Farmers. So you are a first-generation farmer. That was with Gavin Spohr.
Yep, I remember that one.
And then the May 11th one was Farm for Fun. So 2 completely different.
It was actually Farm for
Deals.
Fun that we recorded at National Farm Machinery Show
Yep.
and then aired it again.
Where was the other one?
We did one at Sioux Cup here at National Farm Machinery Show. We did the other one at the John Deere booth at Farm Progress.
That's right.
And then John Deere
That's
wouldn't
right.
let you come back.
That's the one I remember,
No,
the John Deere booth. Yeah, because we
Yep.
had tractors with Tim right after.
That's right. I saw him. I wanted to go say
Yep.
hi, and by the time I got done in the group of people, I couldn't say hi to Tim.
Yep. So, yeah, first-generation farmers. So that's, I think we're coming into some down times, maybe in the ag economy, and a lot of farmers have a lot of generations to lean back on.
Old money, if you will.
I mean, maybe. Or just
Old
knowledge,
acres.
or got iron, or got
Yep.
the acres, whatever. Relationships. Ethan is first generation, so I can only imagine that the problem is magnified. And
Yep.
it's so much bigger of a game because you make one wrong decision.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we're all dealt the cards we're dealt. You just got to play them wisely. I'm not going to sit here and complain and say, well, I wish I had that or this. Or
Right.
I'm just trying to make a go of it. So that's kind of where this stemmed from is, if I'm doing the same thing as everybody else, I'm going to have the same outcome as everybody else.
Yep.
And
What are you pointing at, Tanner?
Those two guys are hosting a podcast too.
Oh, the blue parrot on.
Yeah.
Walking over there.
I don't see it.
I think it's got headsets on as well. Oh,
There you go.
Oh, the blue parrot.
But yeah, I figure if I do the same thing as everybody else, I'm going to have the same outcome. So just trying to do things a little bit different and give me a little more of that wiggle room where, I don't have to bank on a record yield and a record price every year to turn a profit and continue to grow. So.
Okay.
So the way his post started off with is he said, to put things on a conservative side, I'm in the black this year for corn and soybeans. And because it's public information, you said black around $55 an acre on soybeans and about $80 an acre on corn for next year.
Which that's changed since then.
Yeah.
We've had a little tick in the market.
So it's
which has
gotten a
been-
little better.
Yeah.
And then you proceeded to say, I'm curious what you are doing in 2025 to maximize your farm's potential. Here is my example. And then you proceeded to, you went
Seed, chem,
piece
fertilizer.
by
yeah.
piece by piece.
Yep.
Do you mind if we step through some of that for the listeners today?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, could you have done that, Corey? Could you have made this post?
Not on my phone. I think I would have had to have a keyboard.
Yeah. I think I did it with a keyboard.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did.
It was long.
Yeah.
Would have taken a lot of brain power.
If you'd have had talk to text, you could have just whipped it right out.
Talk to
Yeah, then
text.
everything would have been spelled wrong.
Yeah.
And
It's so much
punctuation
better.
wrong.
So
Yeah,
much
no.
better.
Would have been Corey with no E.
Yeah.
Nitrogen with no G.
Rachel with Rochelle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you first started out talking about your chemical program.
Yeah.
You stated that you shop around for most of your chemicals, and that works for you.
I do. That was when I started farming. One of the first pieces of equipment that I ever bought was a sprayer because I could shop around. I wasn't tied to a retailer. They were making me chemical programs up, and I'm like, well, there's generics of this, that, and everything else. And if you start looking at what's in a product and, blends and mixes, and you start buying the generics and blending it yourself, there's a significant amount of money that you can save there. So
What kind of money do you think? Do you have an example?
I mean, I would say across the board, on the conservative side, I could probably save 25% off of most programs that get put together.
Right. How long did it take you, though?
To make that program?
Always is the juice worth the squeeze, so you had
Yeah.
more time in it, but you were able to do it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm mixing chemical regardless whether.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were already there
Yeah.
doing it. You already
Yeah.
had the machinery.
Yeah.
I would
Okay.
argue it's.
I mean,
maybe
it's
a
an
little,
induction cone, so,
Yeah.
it's
maybe
not
it's a
lot.
little time up front,
Mm-hmm.
making sure you have the right person helping you.
Yeah.
Put everything together.
Yeah,
Maybe a little extra there, and maybe an extra jug or two that's going in a mix.
absolutely.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, when I started, I do not have a, chemistry degree by any means. So, I mean, part of it's been trial and error and seeing what works and what doesn't. Fortunately, I haven't cooked a crop yet, so that's good. But, I mean, what residuals have worked better for me, what timing, what rate, what I can.
Yeah. So we're talking chemicals on what types of crops?
Predominantly corn and soybeans. And then this year, some non-GMO corn, which we'll piggyback on that later. Okay. Just for the reason of a premium, but a lot cheaper seed. You're cutting out glyphosate, but that's not really that big of a deal
right
anymore.
Yeah, it's just a grass killer anymore, it seems like.
So it says you're running a 3-pass plan on soybeans.
Most of them, yeah. A pre and a post, and then fungicide on the acres I'm really pushing. So foliars.
Similar on the corn.
Yeah, same thing on corn. Pre and a post on the and that's the nice thing about owning your own machine is if it's been raining that summer and it looks like it's a decent crop, you can put some more money into it. And if it doesn't, leave it in the jug, return it, and so save that money.
A lot of people associate like cash and carry chemicals with less service, right? I'm not paying for the service, but our family cash and carries chemicals as well. And what I found is I have pretty good service, and I've actually surrounded myself with a pretty good team. Do you have anyone that you kind of lean on?
Yeah, I've got several. I mean, I've got one guy that's fairly local that he's killing it on service. So if it's 6 o'clock and I'm like I'm jug and a half shy, I can shoot him a text and it's typically there within an hour or two. I've actually had to tell that guy, when do you go home? Because he's just always working. He drives by and sees you out in the field and hey, if you need anything, let me know. So there is that service, but then there's a trade-off there. It's a little more than if I'm buying directly from a wholesaler or something like that.
Right.
I found a few people who are carrying 0% right now, which is pretty significant.
That goes a long ways.
Yeah, I mean, when you've got $50,000 to $80,000, $100,000 worth of chem, it's significant to have 0%. So, but that's basically I'm ordering that in February. I'm ordering that prior to season and just hoping that there's enough to get through the year. So it's not necessarily – there's not near the service there, but I don't need somebody to hold my hand to make a program either. So.
Not to ask you how many acres you farm because we don't want to do that, but the for smaller guys, marginal acres, if you will, you're talking about a $100,000 chemical bill and 0% interest. Are you, as a first-generation farmer, a lot of our listeners won't be – maybe buying that much, I wouldn't think. Are you like cohorting with someone else or?
No. So when I started, I mean, I was farming 15 acres. So I was going by what a co-op or a retailer told me to buy.
Okay.
Because I didn't have the knowledge back then of what was what and what did what worked, what didn't. And in the short time I've farmed, I've seen those. I mean, chemistry changes every year. I mean, we were using Liberty at the time, then it was Enlist, or then it was Dicamba, and now Enlist. And so, I mean, it's changed several times. But, the longer I've done this, and like anything, the more you scale it, the more you get a little more efficient, I guess.
Let me back up to what you said. You said $55 an acre is what he was hoping to make margin?
That's what he said on his soybeans.
On soybeans. And 15 acres?
Yeah, initially.
So you got $825 a year.
Yeah, I was just happy to pay my bills the first year. I mean, it was an experiment just to see, hey, can I grow a crop?
No wonder you're so skinny.
Yeah,
it's a month of rent at a crappy apartment.
Yeah. Must not be eaten apparently.
So I mean, that was. And the numbers were a little bit better back then, too.
All right, fair enough.
The inputs weren't near what they are now. But
it's like you cannot make a living on that. You better go to McDonald's here pretty quick.
Yeah, and I was working 3 jobs at the time, too, and going to college. So I wasn't trying to live off the farm by any means. And I still supplement that several ways, even now. But, I'm trying to get to the point where even as the farm scales up that – I'm not drawing a cost of living out of the farm, but that's supplemented from other things that way.
So you truly are farming for fun.
I'm farming for the future. Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
So you said you did the retailer side and a little bit more service in the beginning, and Dave got his first farm last year. That was his first year farming, and he's like, all right, Corey, you're going to do everything. You're going to do everything. And he just wanted to hit the easy button because I could do everything. I said, no, you're going to have the co-op spray it. Because, maybe you could get chemicals cheaper through our program, but they're going to tell you why. You're going to realize and learn kind of some of the things. But what that does is giving you education. So when he wants to buy a sprayer, he can. You know?
Yeah, and you can do that pretty affordably, too. I mean.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't have the sprayer payment, then you pay for the service.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Or if your time's worth more, working one of your other 3 jobs,
absolutely.
maybe it is worth hiring the service.
Yeah. And it was there for a little while. And I still, even now, there's times where I hire that fungicide on corn, for example. You know, I don't have a high clearance machine, so that'll either be flown on or a ground
droned
rig.
it on this year.
Right.
Twice.
So so yeah, I mean,
what's that learning curve?
It was a good education.
It was a great
It's the cheapest education you could have got.
Yep.
Yeah.
You won't do that again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, absolutely. I mean, there's still, for me to go buy a high clearance machine for the acres I'm running, it doesn't, I can pay somebody to do it for that. And I'm typically putting fungicide on soybean acres at the same time.
I see.
And I me, I'm a Midwest grain farmer, so I have to go boating sometime too.
That's right. That's right.
It is a requirement.
Right.
It is.
Right.
Cody was here yesterday with his pontoon.
With his dad's boat.
It was his dad's boat.
No.
His dad's boat.
Well, I have the best kind of boat now.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
That's the kind I don't own.
Yes.
You got friends with boats.
Yes, correct.
Yep.
That's perfect.
Corey's got a boat. We should be on the pontoon.
Yes.
I don't have a boat. My dad has a boat.
My dad has a boat. All right.
And I don't even go on
I
it.
have parents with boats. Yeah, even better.
Yeah. But now let's talk seed.
Yeah. So, seed, I mean, I like a lot of the seed guys that I deal with.
Yep.
I don't like mine.
But the more the more guys you try and make happy, the more you're paying.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if I've heard it put that way before.
Oh, I mean, it's scale. So
you're
I mean,
particularly talking volume?
yeah,
Okay.
mainly, yes. So I weeded out, and I keep good records of my yields and this and that, but I weeded out some this year and went to, from 3 or 4 down to 2.
Yeah.
And
You're talking different seed companies.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So I guess technically 3 because I'm growing some seed beans too, but but yeah, that made things significantly cheaper. And then I actually talked to Corey about some non-GMO.
Yep.
And I think I'm going to do that. I've got a pretty good local basis. I think they're 45, 50 cents over right now.
Nice.
So,
On the corn side.
yeah, on the corn side. Yep. So that's fairly attractive. And you couple that with the price of non-GMO corn being considerably less.
Yeah. And a lot of times my non-GMO corn is my best yielding.
Yeah,
Not having those traits in there. Traits are an insurance policy. If any, I mean, they're very valuable,
They're an expensive one, though.
but they can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you don't have pressure. If
Yeah.
you don't have pressure, you don't need
Yeah.
it.
I mean, you're talking 50 bucks
Yep.
an acre,
Yep.
and that's, at
That's
least.
your profit margin.
Right.
Yeah.
So that doubles that,
Yeah.
So, and that's, and when I wrote those numbers initially, that was before I really started sharpening a pencil, too. And I mean, I've got that better than that. And
But that's the whole point of this episode. That our listeners are hearing the same thing, and just because you looked at it in January doesn't mean you can't look at it again.
Right. And I'm constantly reworking my numbers all throughout the season. I'm constantly updating a balance sheet and a projected cash flow, and that's. I had some younger guys ask me earlier, and I told them that's the best thing you could do is know your numbers inside and out.
Yep.
Driving the tractor, driving the combine, it's fun. I love it, and it's not that it doesn't matter, but if you don't know where you're at and don't run it like a business, that's the best thing you could do is know your numbers and know them well.
Do you work for FSA?
I have mixed feelings there.
do you know your balance sheet?
I don't think that's
Yeah.
on the
Redo
list.
it. Redo
Dave.
it again.
I
Redo it
don't- I
again.
don't think that's on the list.
Oh, my
No.
bad. My bad.
Before
Yeah.
we jump off seed, I want to say seed is one of the most emotional decisions I think a farmer can make. Would you agree?
Yeah, and this year with tighter margins, I've tried to take the emotion out of farming
Yes.
because facts don't care about your feelings,
I know.
and I know that's hurt some people's feelings
Yep.
that I was buying from.
Hurts mine.
But
Where's mine? Did you get the free fuel for trailers?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
There we go.
I got the Thunder Chicken.
Okay,
But
awesome.
yes,
The lightning stream.
the Lightning Stream.
All right,
yes.
good.
I'm
good.
going to say I've been in the seed industry. I've sold seed for
Yep.
10 or 12 years.
Yep.
And every seed company has good seed.
Yep.
Every seed company has bad seed. That's why they have a book that's this thick, and they're spreading the risk, whether it's going on this type of ground, that type of ground, or whether it's going on dry, sand, wet, however the weather's going to be. It's just the smart way. But the best thing to do is have one or two people in your area that know
Your hybrids.
your ground, and what works.
Yep.
And so I've learned that because I used to think, oh, my seed's the best. It's
What frustrates me is new isn't better always. And they come out with hybrids that are, upward. Well, we won't get into that, but
Right.
they're the most expensive hybrids,
Yep.
and they're going to be the next great thing.
Yeah.
But yet I'm still planting hybrids that are, sometimes 5-6 years old, and they're still my top performers, and then they pull them
yeah.
and say, well, this is going to be our next best one.
Yeah,
and that's kind of frustrating.
It's
but-
tough because breeders got to have a job, so they want to bring new traits and new crosses and all that, and it's. Gosh, I struggle with it too because I have favorite hybrids as a seed dealer, and then that one's done. It's like, come on, I know if I put that thing over 1,000 acres versus this new dog that costs $50 more a bag, I know which one's going to win. Even though that new dog probably did really good in its small trial, But
yeah, and I don't take. I mean, I put out a corn and soybean plot every year, but I don't take it as gospel by any means.
Right.
I mean, that is a 5-acre piece of dirt at most.
Yeah, and usually it's pretty consistent in some of your best.
Right.
Yep.
And actually this year it was like completely flip-flopped. What I thought would win it did the worst, and what I thought would lose did the best.
Yep.
But then across the farm, across several hundred acres, that wasn't the case at all. So, I mean, I don't take a
my
plot
best
for gospel.
hybrid usually finishes somewhere in the middle of my plot, but then when we get out into the boxes of it that we planted, it's like, why did we not plant more
And
of
I
this?
love third-party research. I love farmer research. I don't like research that, hey, based on what our company did our research on, our product was the best. I'm like, well, is it though? You know, I second guess that. I'm not saying they're dishonest, but
I tell you what,
I get a lot more
when
value
we drive
out of
out to Farm Progress Show, it's like you're headed out to Wall Drug. Every billboard, somebody else says 8 bushel better, 3 bushel better.
Yeah, it's like, if you did everything you were told, oh, this will gain you 2 bushel, this will gain you 3 bushel.
Yep.
You should be consistently growing some 400 bushel corn,
Yeah.
but that's not the case, and that's not reality. And that's where I'm like, well, what has an ROI and what doesn't? I don't care to spend money on a crop, but I don't want to spend $1 to make $1. I want to spend money to, I want to spend $1 to make $1.50.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend $1 to make $1, and especially since, my operating line when I started farming was 2%, and now it's 8, 9, whatever it is now. So as that continues to go up and hopefully come back down, we'll see. But, it makes you rethink that. And what's your cost of doing business? What's your cost of operating? And so a lot of these products, whether that be seed, chemical, and now fertilizer.
This one got a lot of pushback.
Fertilizer?
A lot of your comment section was around what you said about your fertility program.
Well, and that's something that I don't have the answers to right now. I'm playing with a lot of different things right now. So, I mean, I've told every landlord that I own some ground. I rent most of it. But I've always told my landlords, I'm going to farm your ground as if I owned it. And that's why I lock in longer-term leases, because I don't want to be dumping money into a piece of dirt that needs some work and then turn around and lose that money when it goes to somebody else. So I'm not going into it with the intention of mining ground, and that's where some of the pushback was. But at the same time, I mean, fertility is my second biggest cost after land.
Yeah.
So if I can tweak that in any way I can and still see the same crop, see the same yield. And a lot of times, like nitrogen, for example, you could go put 50 more pounds on, but if it's only gaining you 10, 15 bushel, there's no ROI there.
Right.
So just, use stabilizers, use things that are more efficient. Right now, strip till's a big one for me. I'd like to start banding a lot more fertilizer. Never done it before, and it's a huge investment to get the equipment to do that.
Yeah. That jump to strip till is tough.
Yeah. So I'm fortunate to have a guy that's going to do some custom acres next year, and I'm going to get to kind of toy with it and see what works, what doesn't, before I make that big investment to buying a bar. But right now, I mean, that's a big one for me, is if I could cut down on my fertility. And the only reason I say that is, for me, I use a lot of poultry litter. We've got a lot of poultry around us. And if anybody had access to manure, whether that be hog or poultry, whatever, I mean, it's the best bang for your buck 9 times out of 10. So
on your I'm assuming you get some commercial fertilizer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Have you got into variable rate?
Yes. Oh, yeah. So I grid sample. I've tried to be front-loading a corn crop, so that poultry litter is pretty high in phosphorus, a little bit of nitrogen. I credit it for some, and I credit it for a little more every year.
Yeah.
And I'm not seeing a decrease. I mean, I was initially, a pound an acre or a pound per bushel nitrogen. It was always what was pushed around us, and I've got that as low as like 0.6 of a pound per acre or per bushel.
I think that's about as far as you can push it.
That's pretty efficient.
Yeah, and that's stabilized. That's split applied. I mean, that's banding that. That's so. I mean, and there's some more application cost in that too. And you kind of got to look at it sometimes as well. I've got some acres that are cut up. They're the scraps nobody else wants to farm. Well, by the time you go in and do a side dress application, you just ran down more than you just saved yourself by split and apply. It's all. I'll front load that then up front. But
what were the negative comments?
We'll get to those at the end, but it was basically that fact of him robbing the soil, raping the soil. Why are you going to mine this and then turn it over to another landowner? Yeah.
No, I mean, I farm the dirt that I farm with the intention of farming it for decades, ideally. So the only person I'm hurting there is myself. Yeah. I'm not looking to flip it. But
I think on a good sampling program and doing the variable rate, you can really kind of cut your acres up into several different categories. There's a lot of acres that really don't need much because it's been built up over time because it hasn't pushed the yields. So you can cut back some of that budget there and maybe spread that out into some acres that need it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So you raise the level everywhere and not spend it where you don't need to.
And the most cost-effective thing, like say I've picked up a couple newer farms in years past that – I had fertility levels in the teens. Like, it was not good. And that's where that manure is the most cost-effective way. And, I mean, within 2-3 years, you'll see you're well where you need to be.
Yep.
And then grid sampling that and supplementing that because – and there's people that variable rate poultry litter around us, and I've never done that because you're variable rating something that's variable. I mean, depending on where you're at in that pile, it could be bedding, it could be – manure. It's
what did we figure out on a previous podcast? How many years does the average farmer have to farm?
40.
Oh yeah, you get on
30,
average
40?
40 crops.
So you get 40 crops.
Yep.
How many years deep are you?
2017 was the first year, so
2020.
Yeah, 6, 7.
So 8 years.
Yeah.
So 8 years deep. Again, I'm going to go back to the time thing.
Yep.
Do you you've been trying to figure out like where to go and what to go with this program, and I count 110% on advice of where I'm at to just get there right away. Now I might be overspending because that advice, but I only have 40 crops, and I'm later in age than all of you, so I don't have 40 crops. I have 20 crops maybe, and if I only have 20 crops, if I take 8 years to figure it out, like, I wonder if the young guys take so long to figure it out that did I make margin, did I make profit for 10 years, but by God, now I got it mastered.
Yeah.
Is it going to counteract? Now, if you geek out on it, you geek out on it all day long. But I've just food for thought. I didn't know how long it took you to figure out. Like, you're making statements like, well, I tried manure this year, figured this out. I'm thinking, I haven't figured anything out yet, but that's because there's 1 year deep,
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say I do have it figured out.
Yeah.
I'm learning every year. I mean, I'm not claiming to be an expert by any means on any of this, and I said that in that post as well. I was not trying to claim to be an expert, which is why I'm asking these questions. But I gave examples
like
of
as
what
a
I
new,
do.
As a new guy, you had your dad and family as a second or third generation family to kind of learn that as you were even a teenager, as you know. And I think of all the new guys that are going to start farming that are out there, that we're in the same boat. I'm leaning hard on advice because I don't have dads in it at all.
I think naturally it has to be incremental. Like it's the old way worked. And we all know that.
Yeah.
But there's little incremental improvements that we can do along the way to change everything up like 1 year to the next. That's tough.
I got humbled by a guy one time, and he made a very, very good point. He was an older guy, and I was complaining about some of the practices.
Where's Rachel?
That
humbled by older guys.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you that just in case you're – okay, keep going.
I was critiquing the way – so I had the guy that I initially worked for. I mean, he was very old school. We do it because Dad did it this way, Grandpa did it this way, and that's the way we're going to do it too. And I'm a college-educated dipshit at the time, coming out of college with all these new ideas that, like, I want to do this, I want to do that, and just wanting to completely change everything.
Yep.
And another guy said, well, you can't argue with him. I mean, he's made a living at it for 40-some years. And I'm like, no, you got a point there. So, I mean, not that the old way is wrong, but I think there's always room for improvement. I think if you're doing the same thing every year, try something new.
Yeah.
But you can do that too much too. If your whole farm is a trial farm, that's kind of a recipe for disaster too.
You no longer have a constant.
Right.
You no longer have something consistent to compare it to.
Right. So, yeah.
That's good. I mean, so far we've covered a lot, right? Everything from your chemical program, how you went about your seed approach, what you're looking at on the fertility side, and everybody's fertility is going to be different. But I like the fact that you're willing to try.
Yep.
See if we can push the boundaries of how efficient we can be on what we've got.
Yep.
I do think we've heard over and over again the split apply option seems to provide the most opportunity for ROI.
Yeah. That's what I'm doing this year.
Especially because you can control it.
Yep.
A lot of great partners that we've worked with, you can split apply in so many different
that and stabilizers. Yeah, absolutely.
Themselves. But land is the next thing you talked about.
Yeah, that one's a hot topic.
I'm not going to let Corey skip ahead because
I know, I just laughed.
we got to talk about land first.
Yep.
That definitely has to do with land.
You teased a little bit because you said that you own some, but you rent most.
Yeah.
You've also said that you like to try to go in longer-term leases.
Yeah.
So that way you can have more predictability on your end. It allows you to farm with a different mentality.
Yep.
What else on the land side?
Well, there's 100 ways to rent ground.
Do you follow John Staple Farms on?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
He's always searching for those 60-year-old cougars that are out there.
I haven't seen them too much lately. I think these prices are getting to them.
I mean, I go to the nursing home once a month to see who I can.
Sorry, I digress.
Yeah.
You're searching for land. Gotcha. John Staple,
right.
he's the best at it.
That's right.
Isn't yours sitting here watching us?
Yes. Yes. No.
She owns the nursing home.
She owns.
Yeah. No, so that one, I mean, and as I said, I was like, that's kind of a spicy topic, and that's one that, you try and take the emotion out of farming, but people get real emotional when it comes to land. I get emotional. I mean, I do. But, I mean, I want to grow, don't get me wrong, but I'm not trying to stomp on neighbors in the process of it. But that's I think farmers are our own worst enemy because we all complain about the rising cost of seed chemical fertilizer, but yet then when we do have a good year, we sit here and, well, we're going to bump our rent $15 an acre, $20 an acre, and then we turn around and you go back to the years like now where we're in a little bit of a downturn again, and it's like, we're breaking even because we all just bid more to try and grow, and now we're growing where we have grown, and we're still breaking even. We would be better off with less acres.
Just to work more.
Yeah, right.
And run your equipment out.
Right, and that's the reason, I mean, with the long-term leases, I'm willing to pay more for a longer-term lease because if I'm going to expand, I need to buy a planter, a combine. I have to have the logistics to support those additional acres too. So I don't, if you're going out and buying a piece of equipment on a 5-year note and you only have a 3-year lease on 500 acres of land, that's not really a good business model in my opinion. But
it doesn't match up risk-wise.
Yeah, I mean, you're putting the cart before the horse, and I've done that. And I've learned from that mistake. I mean, I did that early on in my career, and I mean, I tell people, I don't have it all figured out. I've made mistakes, and it's trial and error. But I mean,
farmers, you do it all. So should your technology. Level up your equipment with the latest innovations from Ag Leader.
From sure force downforce control and sure speed high accuracy planting to right spot individual nozzle control, Ag Leader has you covered.
And now, with the new In-Command Go displays, you get unparalleled visibility and control, keeping critical information at your fingertips. Upgrade today and reap the benefits this season.
Visit agleader.com or contact your local Ag Leader dealer to get started.
Land is one of those things that I've got to the point now I can kind of pick and choose what pieces of dirt I do and don't want to farm.
Yep.
At first, I was just picking up the scraps nobody else wanted, and now that I've got some better farms, I've let some of the marginal stuff go. But at the same time, some of my most marginal ground is my most profitable.
Yeah.
Because I'm not
Cheaper
paying.
rent or
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it doesn't have to grow 300 bushel corn. I can be profitable on 150 bushel corn too if it's cheaper ground, just depending on the situation. And everybody's situation is different. And
there's always those deals. I mean, I think my cheapest cattle pasture that I have, the guy came to me, he says, hey, will you just mow this down? I said, mow it down. He says, neighbors are complaining it's too tall.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, can I put cattle on it? He's like, yeah. It's like, as long as the grass is down and the neighbors are okay with it. He just didn't want the neighbors to complain, so I pay $0 for it. But it's the most profitable because I just needed lawnmowers.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And they're pretty profitable themselves right now.
There's some sweetheart deals like that.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
But it's the scraps. It's literally 9 acres.
Yeah.
So it's not like
absolutely.
a big.
And when I started farming, 9 acres was a big field to me.
Yeah.
And so
I think you saying that marginal grounds is some of your most profitable. I was at an agronomy conference a few weeks ago, and I kind of got we all romanticize high yields. Like, if I could just get 20 more bushels and whatever, and
it is Valentine's Day.
And and they didn't talk about profitability one time.
Yeah,
one time, and I'm like,
those are the meetings I start like zoning out pretty quickly.
Yeah,
because I've got ground I know I can grow 300 bushel corn on. I can throw every in-furrow, every micro, every sugar, fulvic, you name it. I can throw all that in the tank, and it'll make really pretty corn.
Yeah.
But it's $4. I mean, we're pushing up on 5 finally again.
Yep.
But it's so what?
Yep.
What's the return?
Yep.
Yes, it looks good.
Yep.
It yielded well, but so is it profitable?
Do you have any advice on the land cost side? What you've done that's helped you?
Lock it in because it's always historically gone up.
Yeah.
So if you lock it in on a 10-year lease, you may be paying top dollar today, but 5 years from now it's average, and 10 years from now it's gone down.
Have you successfully been able to get anybody to lower rent?
No.
I'd
lose it in a heartbeat.
Once it goes up, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard
I'd
to
lose it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And I really like flex leases.
Yeah.
I've started to do that where there's a base set, and that kind of takes some of the risk off of me. It gives them some more upside potential.
Yep.
But I don't know. Average cash rent in I think Purdue extensions it was like $250 something for Southwest Indiana, which is where I'm at. And I'd say, some places in my county that's high, some places that's pretty low. But, as a whole, if you're doing a flex lease, and I really like that, but it takes a special type of landlord to do that too, because 1 year's a good year, and the next year they think you're cheating them out of, and it's like, no, I mean, it quit raining in August.
You just got to have that relationship.
Yeah, you do.
Yep.
You do. And so, different strokes for different folks, but, and I rent ground a lot of ways. Initially, I liked cash rent because it was cut and dry, and I knew what I was paying, they knew what they were getting. But as I've gotten into larger amounts of acreage with landlords, where, hey, this 50 over here, it's going to have the potential to push 200 plus, but this 50 over here, it's going to be 150. It's surrounded by trees.
Yeah.
The deer are going to take the first 60 feet of everything,
Yep.
That's where a flex lease really looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Is it averages across the farm from year to year. So
you guys seen this? This girl over here is doing the sprinkler. She was doing the shopping cart a second ago. She was picking for.
Are you making TikToks over there?
Here it is. She's making TikToks or something over there. She's got a sprinkler going.
Make sure you tag us in the TikTok.
All right, fair enough. Right.
But I do like a comment that you made when you put this post together. You said, I'm not going to risk putting out nearly $1,000 worth of inputs for the opportunity for me to maybe make $30 to
Yeah.
$50 an
Yep.
acre
Yeah.
in exchange for the landlord to get a guaranteed check 10 times that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, yeah,
You-
cash
you
rent,
aren't-
they have no risk.
Yeah,
They're
so
paying the
you
property
aren't willing
taxes.
to do that.
Right.
That doesn't mean we don't have listeners that are.
Right. And, but there are situations, if it's a good business model, hopefully a lot different than mine, where they own a lot of ground, where they're in a position they can do that. I'm not. I have a mortgage or pay rent on everything that I farm. So every acre I have has a land cost. And even on the acres I own, once that mortgage is paid, Uncle Stam still wants his cut, and property taxes are going up every year. So it's one of those things that, I'm not going to cut a check for double what the landlord's making double what I am, and they have no risk in it. And that's the game we play, and you're not going to change that. It's just everything above this land cost, the seed, the chemical, the things I can control, that's where I'm trying to save the most. Land is what it is. I mean, I bid on a good bit of ground this year and had the opportunity, was told, hey, we got a higher offer. Do you want to come back? And I turned a lot down because I don't want to farm for a $30 an acre margin. I'm in this to make money, not to say, look how many acres I farm. So
What does our motto say, Tanner?
farm for profit.
If you aren't farming for profit, you won't be farming for long.
Yeah.
Yep. Do you have any crop share?
I do not.
So
I do
I've done a little bit of that, which is kind of an old school way.
Yeah, it is.
And
There was a lot of that around
It
us.
was in the times where Dave was like, "Hey, you got to be renting ground for $425, $500 an acre." And I said, "How? I can't." Even at $7 corn, it didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I had some landlords that were willing to rent me ground, but on 50-50 crop share.
Yeah.
And I felt like it again takes a special landlord,
Yeah.
right? Because they have to manage grain and all that kind of stuff. But they get to see all the inputs come across, and they're like, "Yeah, you're not getting rich."
Yeah. No, and if you've got somebody that's good and they trust you and there's transparency there, that works really well. At home, I mean, there was a lot of 1/3, 2/3 where you had all the costs. They didn't take a third of that cost. It was 1/3, 2/3, and that was super, super common around us.
Yep.
And like now, if I was 1/3, 2/3 on corn, the input cost on corn, it would take a very special year to turn any kind of profit on that. I feel like
this is a tough battle. So being the guy that sells farmland, Corey, you bought a farm last year that you rent out, so you're just the landlord, but.
I took the emotion out of it.
He's not just a
Yeah.
landlord.
So
he's the best landlord.
you're just
ever.
the landlord, but he just made the comment that the landlord has no risk. So when I spend $3 million, do I not have any risk? That's the question. I've been stewing on that for a second.
Yeah.
There's a lot of risk, and I mean, I got guys called me today that they want to spend $3 million, but they also want a 3% return.
Let me rebuttal this.
And
what is the percent of in Iowa? What is the percent of land that's paid off?
84%.
That's what
There
I
we
was
go.
going to piggyback on, though.
Yeah.
It is, but
the ground that I rent is
84%
paid off.
of the time it works 100%.
100% of
that's
the
right.
time,
That's
every
right.
time. But there is risk in buying farmland too.
Oh,
I
100%.
mean,
Yeah, there absolutely is. I mean, I would say
everybody's
historically-
got to win. It's got to be win-win.
Yeah. Yeah.
And landlords, I mean, as we manage farms, I try to tell the landlords that.
Yeah.
And I've tried to keep cash rents down on some to where they wanted to kick it up.
Well,
And
I rented a
when
farm
last year.
I rented a farm not so long ago that an older guy made the comment. He said, "Your cash rent in 1 year is what I paid for that farm," and I'm like, "Cool,
Shut your
Thanks.
mouth.
yeah." But I mean, he bought ground when it was the 80s.
Yeah.
And he had a good job, and he was just buying up ground for the sake of it was cheap.
Yeah.
And it's grown exponentially, and there's so much of that around us that guys bought ground cheap and then thought, well, it's kind of fun to own ground, so they've just bought more and more, and they have enough acres paid off that it makes sense. So I mean, I don't know Indiana's percentage, but I would say it's very similar to Iowa's, where most of that ground that is for rent, at least, is paid off. Now, the ground that's not paid off is because a farmer is paying on it and he farms that
But
ground.
even I think of all the ground that was bought in the 80s for $600. Boy, they were risking a lot.
They were.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
were, and now they're just trying to reap the benefits of it. So, if we put the shoe on the other foot,
absolutely.
it is different.
And I don't want to sound entitled, like, it must be not, because they were absolutely taking on a risk. I mean, I can look around and, half of the farmsteads around me that were there in the 80s aren't there anymore. So, no, it's easy to say, well, corn was, or a bag of seed corn was only this, but interest was 18, 19%, and it was killing guys. So, we all have our different set of problems. I'm not, grass is always greener on the other side,
Some of it's a management of expectations, I think, on both sides. Tanner, what could you get if you just took your money and put it into a CD right now?
Probably 5.5%.
6%.
Right, to think that you're going to go pay $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 an acre and get 5.5%.
You won't.
Is not
3% is the average.
And I look at it this way too. Most farmers are cash poor but asset rich. Yep. And if you looked at your balance sheet and say, okay, I got this in equity, and you said, well, I'm going to put some of that in a CD, and I'm going to sell out tomorrow, and I'm going to put some of that in a CD, and I'm going to invest some of that. And look at and I'm not saying this is a good idea, but if you look at just how, like the S&P, for example, how that's performed the last few years, you would have made way more money just taking your equity and throwing it in something like that, not lifting a finger. But we do it because we love it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're doing it right. You're looking for those marginal pieces, like I said, the guy that wants it mowed. Yeah. He just wants that. There are those folks, but I hate
something you could put tile in, something you could build.
Well, almost every, like I'm dabbling back into cattle. That's a good business, and I want to be diversified right now. And it's a bad time to be buying into them, but it's a good time to be selling them.
But for every young person that's out there that wants to say they want to get into farming, and then they expect, well, you need to rent it to me cheaper. Like you said, I don't want to be entitled. I don't either.
Right.
Nobody said you got an opportunity to farm.
Nobody's making you do it.
You're lucky to get in if you can.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But like with cattle, this is scraps. Yeah. Every piece of hay ground that I have, it's essentially free hay. It's just come in, mow it. We don't want to deal with it.
But you're looking for that opportunity, and that's where you're shining.
And so if I can go jump around patch to patch and roll up some grass and feed it to cows, they're paying pretty good right now. So if you've got very little feed cost, it's a pretty good business. And to the younger guys trying to get in it, that's what you got to be looking for. You don't have to be – don't be looking for, hey, what's the best, highest productive farm ground out there? What's the most profitable thing out there? And it may not be row crop. It's probably not right now.
And it may not be right now. It's hard to be patient when you think about some of that.
But to piggyback on what he said earlier, you've only got so many years too.
I know it's tough.
So,
how do you bet? Yeah.
One guy was really giving you crap for diversifying here.
Well, let's talk diversity. Yeah. Well, we'll come back to talking about your equipment lineup, but you already hinted at the cows.
Yeah.
What else can we be doing, or what else are you doing to diversify?
So next year, I would say 70% of my acres are at a premium of some sort. So white corn, non-GMO corn, seed beans. It's a pain a lot of times. They're buyer's call contracts, and that's the only reason I'm not 100%. Is because I need the other 30% of my acres to cash flow so I can keep bills paid, because I don't know if I'm delivering that in January or if I'm delivering that in April, and I buy a lot of stuff between those months, and I have a lot of notes come due between those months that have to be paid. So I have to grow, just from a cash flow standpoint, I have to have something sold just to pay fall rent and pay, that goes straight out of the field. But, the seed beans next year, the difference between turning a profit on soybeans or $55 an acre or less, or negative $55 an acre on certain farms, and I'm saying this is across the board. This isn't, there's acres that I'm probably going to lose money on farming next year, and I look at it as, well, why am I farming those acres then? Just
First conference we ever had.
Yeah, get rid of them. But
10 years ago, they were trying to talk to the attendees of our conference to tell you don't plant it. Mm-hmm. If you can predict, the odds are that this year you're not going to have a profitable acre.
Yep.
Pick the planter up, don't plant it. But just spray it, keep the weeds down.
But it's the 10 acres you're losing money on that the guy also has 90 acres you are making money on. So you take the good with the bad.
That would fall into the relationship category.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
And that's where you go to the guy and you're like, hey, this is pretty marginal. Can we just throw some alfalfa or something like that on it? Can we do something different here on this 10 acres? But I've also had that jeopardized. Well, if you don't want to farm the 10, then you don't need to farm the 90. And
Here's one I don't get to say very often. You got to take the peaches and cream with the liver and onions.
yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Put that on a
Whoa,
shirt.
you pulled that out.
I don't think you like either of those.
I don't like either.
You got to get the chicken nuggets or with the
liver and onion.
Hot dogs with cheese and ketchup and nachos.
Yeah.
Dave has the palate of a 4-year-old.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. It's all right.
That's funny. But we've talked diversity as far as operations go all the time, and I think some of the arguments that we get is when we call the podcast a way that we've diversified.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not a farm job. It's not a farm crop.
Right.
It's not something along those lines that you would call get into cattle, planting non-GMO corn.
Social media.
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. That supplements a lot of my cost of living right now.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean, I mean, I worked at UPS and loaded trucks. I drove trucks. I worked for a seed company. I've worked construction. I've done a lot to supplement the farm, and it took several years before I was and realistically, I didn't ever think I'd be farming full time. I didn't. I thought I would rent a couple 100 acres and be lucky to buy 50 or an 80 and have a little farmstead and work full time.
Corey supplemented. He was diversifying. He went hogs, and then he just married a sugar mama, and now he's got a
nurse. I think. I wouldn't call that a sugar mama. But
that's diversification.
She does have great health insurance.
She does have great health insurance.
That's worth a lot.
Yeah.
I know what I'm paying right now, and it's not great.
Yeah.
But but I mean, where were we on the diversification? I mean, and I didn't grow any white corn this year, and I wish I did, because for the premium, it would have paid for my cash rent right now.
Huh.
I'm jealous of you over on this side of the Corn Belt, because we just don't get the premiums for corn. We don't get the opportunity. You'd have to go to the river, which is quite a ways away.
Mm-hmm. And I do
we're
too.
lucky that we got ethanol.
Yeah, and this is the difference between driving 80 miles or driving 8.
Yep.
For us, it's organic, it's CI score, or and that isn't even there yet.
Mm-hmm.
No, it might not get there.
It might not get there.
Yeah, and I don't. There's a lot of mixed emotion on organic or non-GMO, or there's different strokes for different folks. I'm looking at it as a business. Is it profitable for me, and does it make sense to do it?
Yeah.
If it does, then I'll do it. But if it doesn't, well, I probably won't.
Well, we had an interview with Orrin, who's a grass farmer.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he was saying the same thing. He doesn't plant the same grass every year because the market changes.
Yep. And you pay for that premium. I mean, you do. But I figure if I'm growing the same conventional program as everybody else, they're going to be within 15-20% of the same input cost as me, more than likely. And we're, whether you drive a really nice Peterbilt 379 across the scale or a Volvo with the bumper falling off and a steel hopper bottom, it goes across the scale and sells for the same thing.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
There's the cool factors, sure, but
they break down the same way too.
They do, and one's disposable. But they, and that's one of the things where.
Well, let's talk equipment.
Yeah.
Hey,
go into it.
Let me tag into this 1 second.
Yeah.
Corey, is there a saying for like farming? So working construction, anytime we're trying to be more profitable, what you were just talking about, we all have the same. So take construction. 2x4s cost the same. Windows cost the same. And you're a contractor. You're a contractor. You're a contractor. I'm a contractor. We're all trying to do the same business, just like farmer. Okay, you said everybody's going to take it somewhat the same. If we're all have the same expenses, how do we do it faster with building houses? We work faster than the other guys. So faster, we make more per hour. Is there something like that in farming?
I guess the equivalent would be kind of scale.
Probably.
Unfortunately,
and
I don't like
managing
that.
Your costs.
I don't like either of those.
I mean, you guys can't go faster necessarily. So if you can't build the house faster,
that's probably been on the equipment side. we're getting to the point, you look around here, you can't make the equipment bigger. We're making it faster because it won't go down the road if it's bigger. But
Well, and you talked about your planter.
yeah.
You got a bigger planter.
Yeah, I mean, I had a 16 row and went to 24. I didn't need it, but it was equal money.
Yeah.
I needed to either put money into what I had or trade.
Or trade up.
So I'm like, well, I mean, I can buy another 16, but for the same money, I can go buy a 24. Actually, cheaper because there's the guys that are buying the bigger equipment now that truly need the bigger equipment are larger scale where they're buying it a lot newer than what I'm buying. I'm buying the hand-me-downs, and it's still big. It still covers the same amount of acres, but it's I mean, you can find a lot of 24 rows cheaper than a 12.
And when I think bigger equipment, I think scale, but then we're back to, well, now I need to scale. I need more acres. Tanner, charge me more on rent. Now I'll give you $5 more an acre, and now it's going to cost me more. It's like...
And then you're, it's 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other at that point.
I think how you set yourself apart is what Ethan's doing. You're finding opportunities. The non-GMO, the seed beans, cattle, diversification. It's probably the thing that pisses me off the most is like we're growing a commodity, right? So it's the cheapest to the bottom. We cut our own throats in that. If corn goes to $7, well, then all of the marginal acres and people are going to put more corn on corn and CRP is going to come out. It's like, and then all of a sudden we're going to go back to 3. It's just like, there's just no getting ahead.
Well, and I would like to get to the point where more and more of my product that I'm selling, I'm setting the price.
Yeah.
Or I'm not selling a commodity.
We talked about that this morning on the pod.
Farmer grade, if you're listening.
Yeah.
But no, and that's a great business model.
They don't listen to us, so.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're just on here. But no, that's something that something along that line. Even on a small scale, just if that's 10% of your farm's income a year, that's 10% you're guaranteed if you're setting the price.
Yeah.
If you're selling directly to a consumer on 10% of your acres, or 10% of your gross revenue comes directly to the consumer, that's 10% you're guaranteeing a lot more than being at the mercy of the market. And you can hedge, you can do things to protect yourself against the market, but it's still up and down. And if you could set a price, that's a lot better business model than what we're doing right now.
To get us back on track, what else did the folks on the computer say to him?
Well, just for your equipment, there's one statement that you made on the equipment side of things that I thought was great. You mentioned going up to that larger planter, trying to get things that have the ROI when you look at maybe more horsepower versus less. You said horsepower is like ammunition; you could never have too much.
Yes.
When you're looking to scale, if you have the ability to do that versus I take on the land, now I got to go purchase equipment, it makes it a little bit different to say yes.
Well, the big misconception I feel like is bigger is more expensive, because that's not necessarily true. So, I mean, for me, I bought some bigger equipment for the same price that I could have got some smaller equipment, but it cut out a lot of labor costs because I could get across twice as many acres with half the manpower then. So, I mean, with equipment, and that varies depending on where you're at regionally too, because there's pockets you can't. I farmed some stuff that I've had to quit farming because my equipment was too big.
Yeah,
I couldn't get in and out.
Yeah, Mark Thomas down here
talked about that.
I mean, it's really easy to see that on the planter side.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we said, a 24 row could be cheaper than a 12 or a 16.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think it's purely just because.
Combines, I would say the same, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you can buy a Class 9 for what you could buy a Class 7 for pretty
And there's
easily.
just more buyers for those smaller ones.
Yeah,
Everyone,
there
a
is.
big farmer can use it, a small farmer can use it.
There is.
Yep.
But, I mean.
Now you got to buy 2. Big one for the big stuff, small one for small stuff.
I've actually considered that.
Yeah?
Like, I've thought about, like, do I go buy an old John Deere 7720 or a 1660 with a 20-foot head just
It's
so
like your gal saying she needs 2 sets of shoes.
Right,
Really? We just need 1 set
Well,
of shoes.
you know,
I didn't know.
some work
She looked
shoes.
up,
And
it's not 2 sets, it's 20 sets.
Yeah.
No, it's
yeah.
2 purses? You don't
I've
need 2
seen her
purses.
side of the
You need 1
closet, so it's more than that. But no, it's one of those things where it's like instead of dropping a 40-foot draper every 5 minutes to do these little patches, it'd be intuitive to have something with a 15, 20-foot head, knock them out. And they're the marginal pieces of dirt, but they're some of the most profitable pieces of dirt too. But yeah, that's kind of the equipment side of things. I've pumped the brakes. I feel like I'm well-equipped or even over-equipped for what I farm right now. But a lot of it's paid off, and a lot of it's, and I'm trying to get to the point where if you don't have the cash to buy it, don't buy it.
Yeah.
Good plan.
And that's hard to do when I'm starting first gen, but
Farmers live off debt.
I'm moving towards that. Yeah.
I liked how you also stated that you try to stay about 50% leveraged before you go, or try to get below 50% leverage before you go move into another piece. Do as much cash as you can. That was good perspective.
Yep.
Everybody's dollar per acre for machine costs is going to be different, but you stated the same thing. You included the repair expense and the fuel expense and everything that goes with that, because a lot of the commenters were like, oh, there's no way that that's accurate, and how could you ever farm with it? Fine. We don't need to talk about that because everybody's machinery situation.
And that varies, between, are you an operation that's heavy on cash or light on cash? That's going to determine what kind of equipment
your
are you
interest
farming.
expense.
And there's a trade-off there, too. Do you want to farm with new equipment that's more reliable?
Yes.
Or
nice.
do you want
Yes, we all do.
But I've also but on the flip side of that, I've traded a lot of old equipment off for newer so it would be more reliable, and it's quite frankly it's been less reliable than the older stuff, and the older stuff I could turn a set of wrenches on and I could fix it. Now I'm calling a dealership to bring a laptop and plug in and tell me, hey, what do I need to do here? And we're troubleshooting, throwing $5,000 wiring harnesses at stuff that may or may not fix it. As soon as it's plugged in, you're stuck with buying it. And so, I would argue that, sometimes that older stuff, there's a trade-off there. And for the younger guys out there, if you have the ability to turn wrenches or know people that do, this has bought a lot of labor at my shop before. So,
I love that plan.
Yeah.
I like that plan.
Yeah. There's some.
I wonder if you could send a case of that to John Deere just
Yeah.
when the farm plan bill shows up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, a case of Busch Light.
Yeah.
I thought you said that was fine instead of
Yeah,
however
it's
many
10
dollars
cases of
an
Busch
hour.
Light an hour.
Yes.
10 cases of Busch Light.
Yes.
How much Busch Light per hour?
Yes.
Equal.
So I just kind of want to wrap up that part before we get into the comments.
Yeah.
The last thing you talked about was marketing.
Yeah.
And we don't need to belittle that because you have your experiences. Someone else is going to have their experiences. You kind of leaned heavy on the fact that you do have grain bins, and you utilize those as part of your marketing program.
Yep.
We've got an ad running right now. Well, maybe not right now on the podcast for our partner Stu Cup that has had the tagline for how long? Store now, profit later.
Yep. Steve gave us a zinger on that one yesterday. He's like, we're up over $1 since last fall.
Yeah.
Grain bins work again.
Grain bins, yeah.
And they did this year. I got late. I will argue grain bins make me a little lazier when it comes to grain marketing because I know my cost of production and I'll just sell just enough to keep the bills paid until I have a price that I like, and then I'll sell it all. But that's one of the things I'm here at the show looking at right now is more storage. And
starts with an S.
I know a guy. Yeah.
But he's just talking to me about a double run before I got up here.
Yeah.
So, that's something that I would like to keep building. But on the marketing aspect of things, I haven't hit it right every year. I don't know that anybody does. If they did, they probably wouldn't be doing this. But I market more because I know my cost of production than I market based on what the market may or may not do. What I do know is what my cost of production is. What I don't know is what the market's going to do.
You can't lose money if you're making money.
True.
And that's you hear that thrown out a lot on that page specifically. Nobody went broke selling at a profit. Well, $4.25 may be profitable, but I'd still rather sell for $5. So
that's fair.
It's
right?
one of those.
And then once it hits 5, it's going to 550.
Yeah, and I'm really bad about it's $4.89 or it's $4.98. I'm gonna wait for those 2 cents, and then it drops to $4.60.
You need to talk to Corey. He's already schooled me on
Yes,
this.
but if you want really good grain marketing advice, I'll do it pretty cheap for you. Just call me the day after I sell a contract, and it'll probably limit up the next
from
day.
there?
So,
Okay.
yeah.
You should start a text service.
Yes,
that
I
says,
should.
will
I
text
sold
you.
today. I
yesterday.
sold 20,000 bushel today.
It's
Sell
like
tomorrow.
Me and cutting hay. We need rain.
Yes.
I just cut hay.
Yes, absolutely.
So to end your post, because we've basically gone through everything that you've talked about,
Yep.
and you ended it with this exact quote.
Yep.
I don't claim to be an expert on anything, but if you took the time to read this, then take the time to drop advice of your own.
Mm-hmm.
So you put a pretty bold challenge of, I'm standing at the end of this gun range.
Yeah.
Shoot your shot.
Yeah. And there was some really constructive stuff, and then there was...
Was there?
Well, yeah, there was some. If you weeded through it, yes.
There was a little bit in there. But I pulled out some that I thought were interesting, some that we've already talked about on the podcast.
Yep.
Yeah, well, just real high level, the first one that came in,
Mm-hmm.
we've done an episode on the 5% rule.
Mm-hmm.
We've done an episode on the 10% rule.
Mm-hmm.
What can you do if you shave 5% off of your cost, increase 5% on your revenue, and increase yield by 5%?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't just add up to a 15% revenue increase. It's actually exponential.
Absolutely.
So if you're doing a little bit, you save that nickel here and that nickel here, and
Mm-hmm.
you can sell it for a nickel more.
Yep.
It actually is a big deal. So
Yep.
that's nothing new to our listeners. We've talked about that before.
Yep.
Small changes that have big impacts.
Well, and I'm trying right now to piggyback on that 5% to try and basically get to the point that I'm starting to self-finance myself because interest keeps going up. And if I kept that within my own operation, there's 5% there. I mean, don't get me wrong, those are very important, but if I could knock 5% of overall interest a year out as well, which is difficult. And where I'm struggling, and I don't really have the answer to this right now, is if I cut out 5% of interest, that means I'm probably not growing. Because if I'm growing, I'm borrowing money to grow. So is that opportunity cost, we'll call it, worth the interest paid in order to do it? And that's something that I'm struggling with right now that I don't really have an answer for. Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah.
Do I want to pick up more acres, or do I want to stay where I'm at and pay things down? And, and my attitude towards that changed because initially I just wanted to get to the point where I had enough acres to farm full time, and I got to that point. Now do I want to grow past that? Because I also see ag continues to consolidate, and it will continue to consolidate. Do I want to try and keep with the times and be a step above that, or do I want to add another 5% to this where I'm not paying that in interest every year?
Corey sent me a TikTok. Corey sent me a TikTok the other day that said someone was presenting saying that he'll never not have debt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, rich people even use it.
Rich people use
And
debt.
I won't. I will always be buying a piece of real estate, ideally. I feel like that. And I've had guys say, good ground will pay for itself, and it always costs more than what it should when you buy it, but long term, which, I mean, I've seen some sales where I might argue with that, but overall I would agree with that. I mean, and a lot of guys that are a lot older than me, generations older than me, have said, when we bought this farm for $1,000 an acre, we thought, oh, we're overpaying for it, and then time goes on, and it looks pretty good. So
I cut you off. You gonna come back to it?
I don't even.
Disappeared?
I do remember now. You talked that you had enough acres to what you wanted, but you want more. I'm curious what everybody thinks of how many acres does it take to be a full-time farmer?
I thought you were going to say that it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop.
No. How many acres does it take to make a living? Now, everybody's cost of living is different, but
Right.
generically.
Right.
Is it 1,000 acres per family, like meaning my wife and I, and then
that's
if our
kind of
brother
the
and
general
sister?
consensus. I feel like that's an average general consensus.
About 1,000 acres?
I was going to say, if you average the projected revenue between $55 and $80 an acre, you're looking at about $65 an acre average profit, 50-50 rotation.
Yeah.
And if you were comfortable with a $65,000 a year salary.
Yeah, but I don't, I want to put that money back towards the farm.
Yeah.
And if
that's what I'm
that's
saying.
all I've got to live off of, then nothing's going back to the farm, and the farm's
Correct.
stagnant.
So at 1,000 acres, that $65 an acre doesn't get you a living.
Yeah.
way.
and
Tonight I
as-
need 2,000 acres.
Which is where I'm at.
Just need to get
Yes.
there. Get
And-
there so that you can put half of it away and still live off half.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
You got challenged right away
Mm-hmm.
on,
Oh, yeah.
on your grain
And I
storage.
knew it would. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I knew all of it would, but Yeah, I mean, grain storage, it's a grain marketing page, so there's a lot of guys that sell a service on there. That
proactive grain marketing and not storing has worked better 9 out of 10 years.
I'm going to disagree with that.
I just don't know who can make a bold enough statement.
Yeah.
Either direction.
In basis alone,
Yeah,
I pay for my
separating
bins. I mean, I do, just in basis alone. I'm not going to argue that. I mean, 23, I lost money putting it in the bin. I absolutely did. 24, I made a lot of money putting it in the bin. And of the whatever years, 6, 7, 8 years I've been farming, more times than I've stored grain every single year that I farmed. Even when I had 15 acres. I went and rented a 5,000 bushel government bin. And then had to shovel it out because it didn't have a sweep. But, you know, it typically has paid more than it's not. And I'm just going based on my own experience.
Yeah.
It has paid more than it hasn't
For
me, in basis alone.
Yeah. Separating bases from the Chicago Board of Trade is always good.
Mm-hmm.
The logistics at harvest, so you're not having to go.
And that's worth a lot to me because
it's giving you the ability to get into these markets of specialty.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't have that.
Yeah. And like next year, I'm looking into having more than a couple 100,000 bushels of corn. Logistically, with our elevator lines, I cannot get that moved at harvest with the manpower that I have right now. So there's that aspect of storage too.
Yep.
That
You also got pushed pretty hard on diversity.
It was something along the lines of just figure out, like, stay in your lane. Know what you're good at and stick with that.
Yeah.
Which I'm saying know a couple things and be good at it. I'm not saying have my hand in 6 different things. I'm trying to find a couple where when one's good, it's propping up the other one and knowing both inside and out.
Yep.
Well,
And some of them go hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
You had to get good somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to. I didn't know how to podcast 7 years ago.
Right.
Still don't.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm getting good.
Yeah.
There's one commenter that said, stop worrying about it. Said, sometimes your net income is a negative number. It's just called farming.
I call BS on that.
Why?
I'd love them to tell my banker that.
But don't your banker? I don't care.
You know.
Every listener of this podcast is working to do what they can, to learn, to drive relationships, to leverage connections and understanding, to never have a negative net income.
Right. Right.
Why does this person think it's okay to give up? That's the way I took it was, okay, I'm losing money
And
this year.
I don't know who it was or what their situation is, but I'm going to say that there's probably equity there to back that.
Dollar cost averaging.
Yes. I mean, if you've got equity, but I don't, so I'm trying to.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, so I'm trying to build, not go backwards. So that's where I'm at with that.
The last negative one that I curated is all the way at the bottom. They said, you didn't mention anything about reduced tillage or no-till, saving dollars on equipment. Well, all they wanted to do was spark a debate on whether tillage or no-till was something that's going to apply to your operation.
I mean, I do both. I treat every acre a little different. I disc grip and pull a finishing tool over some acres, and I no-till and cover crop others. I farm every acre a little different, and I cater it towards which we've got a lot of diversity around us, and there's pockets of the country that don't, but
That's the beauty of farming. We have 900 different vendors here at the National Farm Machinery Show. Not everybody needs 900 different pieces of equipment or different products or whatever.
No.
I want everything that's in this booth.
Because I don't farm the same way you do, and you don't farm the same way I do, or as Corey does.
I'm looking at the tools that, can I use it as a minimal tillage tool and a finisher?
Yep.
Is there that? Because I'm not going to go spend $100,000, $200,000 on a brand new tillage tool that only does one job. If I'm going to spend that kind of money, it's going to be something that will fill the role of several tools, I guess. So, I mean, as far as reduced cost, how much money did you have to put in your planter to make it be a good no-till planter versus what you could go buy a $10,000 piece of tillage machinery for?
Right.
So I mean, I don't know that's. I do both. I just left a booth to try and set my planter up a little bit better for no-till, but I also said this will work in conventional till too, correct? Yep. Because I do both. I'm not. I farm every acre a little different. So, I mean, I'm always looking to reduce costs, don't get me wrong, but I'm not looking to reduce ROI, and you do have to spend money to make money, but just spend it as wisely as you can.
You did have a lot of folks that complimented you, thanked you. As far as that goes, one gentleman is looking more seriously into getting their own sprayer because of the control that you talked about and the options that provides. And then there's two that I singled out. One acted like she posts all the time in this discussion group. She says, "Hey, it's me, the 45-year-old widow with kids that are too young to farm." I'm like, holy attention seeker.
Yeah.
That's a one way to grab a farmer's attention.
John Staples, get with her? Yeah. I was going to say.
Immediately goes, but my land's rented. Sorry, guys.
But my land's rented.
But this was a neat on your land discussion. She continued to say, I'm open to flexible leases. Given that there's protection in the bottom for me, I still have farm debt that I need the rent to cover. I feel my rents are in line with similar land in the area. My landowner has had great success with flexible leases with his late husband. Sorry, I took the LH. Late husband has helped other teens be able to get into farming and make better choices. I'm thankful for your post that you're helping me learn and now in transition helping them learn about choices to be successful. Ironically, I think it would be a great year for them to learn starting in the lean years of farming. She goes on to say in parentheses, with no risk using her dime to prepare themselves for later on. So she's thinking about starting her kids on 16 acres. In a tight year as a way to teach them.
I started on 15, but I started in good times, and I kind of wish it would have been a little bit more lean because I got humbled, which I needed, and I'm glad I did. And I was glad that I was in a position to weather that. But you learn a lot more in the lean years than you do the years that are good. I will say that.
How'd you go from 15 to over 1,000?
A little bit of skill and a whole lot of dumb luck.
Got it.
The last one. Why are you smiling?
Dane Jessup's texting me.
Oh, funny. Super fan?
Yeah.
The last one that I'm going to talk about because we've done a couple of episodes on mental health, on the art of being resilient, on how you can not get down in the dumps when you think times are tight. And I thought this one comment summed it up quite well that says, there's only one person that has ever walked on this earth that knows everything, and that was the good Lord. You can't worry about it. You have to worry about it, right? You have to make decisions, but in the end, it's your struggles that you are worried about. And if you do the right things, have the same connection with the right people, listen to the right podcasts. See what I did there?
I see what you did there.
You might be able to sleep better at night.
I mean, I was walking on water the other day, but we were ice fishing. So.
It's hard water.
The hard water.
Some of that Flint, Michigan water.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't make it very far in this limestone filtered water we've been drinking down here.
Yeah.
So do you have any overarching thoughts on just all this? Any advice? Just covering all this.
I mean, when you make a post like that, there's going to be some pushback and some sarcasm, and that's fine. I'm pretty thick-skinned at this point, but there was a lot. I guess I wish I could have brought more to the table here today because there were several messages that I got privately that said a whole lot more than what was in the comments, and they were
good or bad?
Very good.
Oh, okay.
Well, both. I mean, there was a couple that I'm like, I'm just not even going to dignify that with a reply, but there was several that were just very, very good. From the older and newer generation, the older and younger generations, there was guys that, were retired. There was one in particular that had retired and had a lot of words of wisdom. And then there were a lot of younger guys like there are at shows like this that come up and have a lot of questions. And I don't want them to think I have all the answers. I can give advice, but it's free, and so take it for what it's worth. But don't get me wrong, I know there's local people that see that, but most of them are not. And that's been the greatest thing about doing the whole social media thing and coming to shows like this. I get to talk to people from all different states and all different corners of the world, and they all have different opinions and different ways to farm, and I don't think anybody's right or wrong. They may be right in their area, and it may be wrong for mine.
We need to create a new social platform, humility / with social media.
Yeah.
Humidia.
Yeah.
Humidity?
That sounds
Humidity.
I don't know.
Humidity.
It sounds like a diabetic drug or something.
It wouldn't be so hot.
It wouldn't be so. Humility goes a long ways, though.
Yeah, it does. It does. But it's been a blessing to meet a lot of the people that I've got to meet and talk with a lot of the people I've got to talk to. And putting yourself out there and making a post like that, you'll bring, for the 10 guys you may get pushback from, the 2 are worth it to get some solid advice from. So
Fair enough.
That's good.
What are we? Hour and a half deep?
No, not at all.
Oh,
We're
but-
pretty close.
yeah.
I think you
It
should
was
tag
worth it. There
you
was
should tag
no-
the Facebook post in the show notes so people
Okay.
can go back and read
Yep.
it themselves and go look at the
Join the group, even.
Yeah.
I would encourage.
There's a fair bit of sarcasm on there,
Oh, yeah.
several, which I also take part in.
Yeah.
I have some fun doing that. But
I would encourage you that if you haven't already, do like a mini TikTok series on some of those private messages.
yeah, I'm actually gonna start a YouTube series on that.
Nice.
Yeah.
I not necessarily. I feel like it's so saturated with the day-to-day blog stuff, vlog stuff, which I'll still do that some, but the stuff that seems to have the most retention from people is the talking actual numbers. But how deep do I really want to get into that too?
Yep.
It's going to not be my own numbers. It's going to be a vague. Here's
go.
a example.
John Staples Farms, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, John at Stapler Farms.
A little bit of satire.
And Cousin
here and there.
Ethan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cousin Ethan.
Yes.
Yep.
My uncle.
Yes. Yes.
There you go. You could do that.
Yes.
I like that.
Yep.
I said in the beginning, but I appreciate your vulnerability to put it out there, no matter what condition it was in. When you decided to hit send on that button, I appreciate how well thought out it was to be able to generate conversation that actually could matter. If you go too vague, if you go too bold, you just get nothing valuable in return. So I think you gave enough information. And I actually hope that some folks reach out to you based upon this episode.
Yep.
They might not have seen it on Facebook, and maybe there's some more advice that we can get from our audience.
So
So
I'm open to it.
if they want to do that, how can they find you?
Instagram and Facebook is just me, Ethan Clarke.
With an E. at
With
the
an
end.
E. I spell it wrong. And then I've got the farm Facebook page, which is just Clarke Farms. Same thing on YouTube. And then if you're bold enough, I guess on TikTok, it's Half-Ass Acres. So
Doesn't sound like you half-ass very much, though.
Full ass acres.
watch the TikToks. You'll see where I do. But yeah, so that's where to reach me. Or at a farm show. If you see me walking around, don't be a stranger.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. You like to have fun. Well, we're gonna go have some fun tonight.
allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
All right, listeners, we appreciate you listening as well. And until next time, have a good one.